Hello and welcome back to another Walking Dead video, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about every variant that we know of in the Walking Dead universe and ranking them from the least deadly all the way up to the most deadly variant in this franchise. And I'll be going for the categories that I talked about in my last Walking Dead variant video, so let's jump right into this with number 16. Pets. And these are the only variant walker that actually aid in your survival because they can't bite you and they can't scratch you. They become docile, and pets act as camouflage against other variant walkers. So obviously they're going to be in last place, as these are the only variant that actually aid in your survival. Number 15 is walkers. These are the basic walkers, and these are slow, dumb, and they're very easy to kill. The only way these will be a threat is right at the start of the apocalypse, or if they're in herds. And we're talking about maybe a year or two in, people can deal these things like they're nothing. So basic walkers are number 15. And number 14 is protectors, and these are almost exactly like basic walkers but with one difference. And that one difference is, instead of roaming around endlessly stumbling across food and eating it like basic walkers, protectors are always hunting. The whole purpose is to walk ahead of the herd, hunt someone, kill them, and then let the horde eat them. And that's what makes it slightly more deadly than a basic walker, is that they are actually hunting for food and not just roaming around and stumbling across it a lot like a basic walker does. Number 13 is armored walkers / riot walkers, and this is a double-edged sword. One, because they probably have a helmet on, they're harder to kill. However, they might be a bit slower, but they're harder to kill, so they can grab onto a human, slow them down for the herd to catch up. And that's what makes them more deadly, is that they are not an easy to kill walker. And this is the first time a walker is not easy to kill on this list. However, if they got a helmet, there's a chance they have a mask on as well, so they can't bite you. So it gives some, take away some, but I put it above basic walkers just because these are harder to kill than a normal walker. Number 12 is a bloater, and this is another double-edged sword situation. Bloaters are walkers that have become waterlogged. You barely see them in the Walking Dead universe, and I think you've seen them only 3 times, and all 3 times they have almost killed somebody. However, they have a big drawback, and that is that it seems like their skin's always peeling away, and they kind of fall apart very easily. So they might be very heavy, so they're easy to force themselves to be able to bite somebody, so they got the advantage of they have the sheer size and mass to bite somebody, but that's if they don't fall apart in the process. So they are deadlier than a basic walker. However, I can't put them any higher just because of how fragile they actually are. Number 11 is human-made walkers, and this is a wide category. This could be something from an embulbed walker, which means they can't bite somebody, so they're almost docile, all the way up to Winslow. And on the aspects of Winslow and those type of walkers, that's what brings this all the way up, because a lot of the time it's just a walker with a metal bucket on their head with spikes on them, and they're harder to kill just because you cannot get to the bit which stops the walker. And even Rick Grimes struggles to kill this variant, so that shows how deadly this type of walker actually is and what threat they actually pose. Number 10 is the plague walker, and this can be identified by blood coming out of their ears, nose and eyes. And what makes this variant so deadly is even after they died, if you get any of that blood on you, you could die from an infection from that blood. However, you can survive, and that's through antibiotics and medicine, so that I can't even put this even higher really, just because there is a way around surviving the big thing that makes this walker a big threat. But it does weaken you, so when you're recovering from the infection, you could still die from other walkers or other threats. So this is still a walker you don't want to mess with. Number 9 is environmental walkers, and this is another massive category that ranges quite a lot. However, what it gives you are still some very deadly walkers. You can get walkers that blind you because they got moss growing on them, or you can get walkers that are hard to kill because their skin is hardened like rocks. And that's just to name a few. There are so many different types of environmental walkers, and every single one is just as deadly as another one. That's why it deserves to be in the number 9 spot. Number 8 is lurkers, and these are walkers that have starved to the point where their body, instead of roaming around, it decides to go into hibernation mode. And lurkers act as dead bodies, and what makes them so deadly is that you never know if a corpse is a lurker or just a corpse until it's too late. This is basically the booby trap of walkers. You'll be walking through a graveyard and not know that your foot is about to be placed next to a lurker or just a dead walker, and that's why it's so hard, just because you won't know you're dead until it's too late, but I can't rank it any higher just because it is a weakened walker. Outside of its surprise attack, it's a very weak variant. Number 7 is the radioactive walkers / radiation walkers. And what makes these walkers so deadly is that you just cannot kill them like normal walkers. If you kill them with a certain type of weapon, like a stick, your weapon is now irradiated. You have to get rid of your weapon. If you get in the guts on you, you have to then clean yourself, decontaminate. These walkers, if there's enough of them, and you've been exposed to these walkers enough, even if you killed them all, they're going to get the last laugh because you're going to be the one dying from radiation sickness because you've had to deal with radioactive walkers. And that's what makes them so deadly, is the long time that it could take for these things to kill you and how slow they can kill you because of radiation sickness. Number 6 are smart walkers or climbers. I've seen a lot of people say they're meant to be called climbers. I always call them smart walkers, but smart walkers / climbers. These are walkers that can climb, open doors, have some sort of self-awareness to know how to use weapons and how to pick up tools, and they seem to be more perceptive than normal walkers. And what makes these so deadly is because people are just not going to be ready for a walker that fights back. And as I mentioned, they can climb over your walls, so you can't hide behind a wall like you can with almost every other walker within the Walking Dead universe. They can just open a door and get to you once they're inside those walls. They can smash down a window with glass. These walkers might not be super strong, but a lot of survivors just aren't ready to deal with a walker that can grab your weapon out your hand and then lunge in for a bite. That's what makes these walkers so deadly, and also, because of Season 11, these walkers are seen as a myth, and not seen as a real thing. They're seen as horror stories you tell around a campfire. So you have this legend about these walkers not being alive, or not being around, shall I say. A lot of people just aren't going to be prepared to face a climber / smart walker. And moving on to number 5, and it is a roamer. And these are almost exactly the same as the climber / smart walker, but with one difference. They remember aspects of their past, so they could go out their way back to their old home that they were before they died, and they will be even looking for relatives or family members while they're dead. So this walker, if you know somebody and they've turned into a roamer, they could be going out of their way to hunt you down because that walker's trying to find you specifically. And what makes these walkers terrifying is that sometimes they can pass off as almost human. They can pick up a teddy bear just because that was connected to them before they died. And if you don't see them face, or they've only recently turned, or you can't see the bite, you think they're human until it's way too late. And that's what makes them so deadly, is they have that one advantage over the climber, is that they can sometimes, if you can't see them fully, pass off as slightly human because they have such an unusual behaviour that is so unique to this one type of variant walker. Number 4 is the Walker King, and this has all the benefits of the bloater walker, but with none of the drawbacks of it falling apart. It is unusually fast, it is heavy, and because it's a Walker King, there are multiple mouths. So a survivor has to deal with being bitten from multiple different positions, so they have to be very careful facing a Walker King because of the size, the speed, and how many times they have to fight off a potential bite from one of the many heads of the Walker King. And if your name is not Maggie Rhee and have massive plot armor, you're just gonna die by the sheer weight of the Walker King. Moving on to number 3, and it is the Burner. And this is the most common variant, or it seems like the most common walker type in France. And what makes Burners so deadly is that you just cannot touch them. You can't have them touching you. You cannot get any of their blood on you because they got acidic blood. They're acidic to the touch. And if you stab them, your weapon's now got acid on it, so your weapon's degrading even more. These are so deadly just because of how you have to fight them from long distance. And facing them years into the apocalypse means they're even more deadlier because you no longer have guns to keep them away from you. You have to get up close and personal and risk getting covered in acid, and then have your new wound to become infected, and then dying from the infection. The only way to survive this is cauterization. And we can see how deadly burners are is by Daryl Dixon Season 1 Episode 1. This is the only time Daryl's ever struggled killing a walker, was when he had to face burners, and he almost died in the encounter because he just wasn't ready for how deadly these variants actually are. And number 2 are runners, but they're technically called cohorts, but I'm going to call them runners. And these are walkers that can sprint, and that's what makes them so deadly. You can't outrun them. They are just as strong as a normal walker, but they are way more aggressive, as we can see in World Beyond's end credits scene and in Daryl Dixon's season 1 episode 5, and they can just chase after you for ages. These walkers also have the ability to turn in a matter of minutes or seconds, and also have some sort of memory like roamers do of how they died. So if you shot one in the back, as we see in World Beyond, it will turn in seconds, turn around and chase after you. That's how deadly runners are. And number 1 is the hybrid walker, and this is by far the most deadliest variant in the Walking Dead universe, just because it takes all the aspects of other variants. It has the acidic blood of burners, it has the speed of cohort / runners, and on top of that, it is highly aggressive to the point it will kill anything else in the room, even other walkers, and has super strength. It is strong enough to pull chains out of concrete walls. This is a walker on steroids, and no other variant is as powerful and as terrifying as the hybrid walker. The only downside of the hybrid is they are super rare and they're not perfected. They are a genetic experiment and they are so hard to make. You can inject a normal walker with what makes it a hybrid, and there's a chance its head just explodes and it doesn't turn into a hybrid. So that's the only good thing you could say about this hybrid, is that there's a chance it will die as soon as it turns into a hybrid. But this is just my list and my ranking of the least deadly to the most deadly variants. So please tell me down below, do you agree with my ranking or do you disagree? And if you disagree, what are your ranking of the least deadly to most deadly variant walker? But this is me today, so goodbye and I'll talk to you later.